Terrell,
Yeah.
why did the programmer quit his job?
Why?
Because he didn't get a raise.
Yo, what's good? It's your boy Premier. So let's talk arrays. Alright, so sometimes, yeah, creating one variable just won't cut it. Maybe you need like 10 integers and like 50 floats for some reason. And you just sit there realizing that this day is going to be slower than a snail moving backwards on a turtle that's moving forwards. Yeah, dead that. That right here is what arrays are for. Well, the definition for arrays is that it's a homogeneous sequence of objects allocated in contiguous memory. In my typed objects, values and variables video, I said that a variable is like a box that can store values of a given type. Well, an array, yeah, is like a line of those boxes but all stuck together. You see, all the elements in an array have the same type, and in computer memory, there's no gaps between them. They're literally all stuck together. From the theory side of things, that's basically it really. Simple. So first and foremost, create a new C++ project in Visual Studio and then set up a basic program. If you don't know how to do it, just read the second episode. Anyways, how do we declare an array? It's pretty simple, to be honest. Pretty much the same as declaring any other variable. You specify the type, you name your array, but then after that, you need to put 2 square brackets, and in between the square brackets, put the number of elements that you want inside the array. Those 2 square brackets, they're called subscript operators. And in this use, it's specifying that the variable integer array is going to be an array of 10 integers. So calm, you just created 10 integers in one line of code. But wait, there's an issue. All 10 of those integers are uninitialized. Nah, gee, we can't have that. So with initializing arrays, we've been blessed with many different ways to do so. The first way I'm going to show you is using the initializer list. Remember those curly braces that we used to initialize variables? Spoke about it in this episode. Well, you can do the same thing here with arrays. Note that I put the assignment operator in the statement as well. Now this is pretty dope. Say you wanted to put some data in this array, let's say a word, but you don't know exactly how many characters are needed. By using this method of initialization, you can leave out the exact number of elements that you want to create from the subscript, and the array will be the same size as the number of elements that are in the initializer list. The great thing now is that every single char variable in this array has been assigned. The values are assigned from left to right. So the first element in the array will have the value C, and the second element will have the value H, and so on. Okay, cool. So imagine, yeah, you know you need 10 floats, but as of this moment right now, you know the value of 2 of those floats. The remaining 8 will be determined later on in the program, but you don't want to leave the rest uninitialized. That's not right. So what you can do, yeah, as long as you specify the number of elements in your array, you can use the initializer list to initialize the variables with the data that you know. So in this example, that's 2 values. The remaining 8 values will be default initialized. And the last way to initialize your arrays. You can default initialize all of the elements in an array by specifying the number of elements that you want and assigning it to an empty initializer list. Alright, chill. So let's see what data is inside these arrays. So just to give this a little context, in this little table here, the index column is the index in the arrays. All of the arrays have 10 elements, and the other fields show what data is in this index. So as you can see for the chart array, all the elements have been initialized. Bless. With the float array, 2 are initialized to values that you've specified, and the remaining 8 have been default initialized to 0. Chillin'. With the doubles, all of the elements have been initialized to 0. Nice. Oh shoot. All the elements in the integer array haven't been initialized. They've all been assigned a random value. See, it may look like all of the elements have been given the same value, but this value can and will differ on different machines, and even on the same machine, depending on what stuff you're doing on it at that given moment. That's especially not good if you're making a program that is intended to be used by anyone other than yourself. So initialize your variables, mate. Alright, so cool. So you know how to initialize your variables, but at some point you actually want to access and use them. And this is where the subscript operator comes back into things. So to use this operator to access a specific variable in your array, you write the array name as usual, but then after we open the subscript operator and place the index of the array element that you want to access. Pretty simple still. So let's look at this array. 3 elements with the values 1, 2, and 3 in it. Let's output the content so you can see. Wait, what the f? Index 1 has the number 2, and index 2 has the number 3, and 3 has some random uninitialized variable. The first element in an array is not 1, it's 0. So for an array of 3 elements, the index will be within the range of 0 and 2. Ensure that you remember this because this is very important. Much better. You can also use this to assign new data to an element. Now, another way that you can access elements in an array is using the dereference operator. This operator is the asterisk sign. You place the asterisk and then put the name of the array after it. This will give you access to the first element in the array, element 0. Remember, element 0 was initialized to 1. So let's dereference the array, give it a new value and output its contents. As you can see, the value has changed to the new value I just gave it. But remember though, this will only access the first element, so none of the other elements will change as a result of this. Alright, chill. The last thing I want to cover is range. What if you try to access data outside the range of an array? Like trying to access element 10,000 in an array which is only of size 3. This right here is bad, and for this reason. Remember what I said earlier? An array will create a line of variables in memory. The integer array above will take up the size of 3 integers in memory and have that dedicated solely to storing integers. If you try to access data outside of that range, you'll try to access memory that is not reserved for the integer array. This as a result can corrupt your program and make it behave in mad strange ways. As you see here, when I run this program, there's an access violation error. Basically meaning you're trying to access stuff which you have no business accessing. So ensure that you know exactly how many elements are in your array and also ensure that you don't access outside of that range. Methods for ensuring this will be discussed in the near future, son. Alright, chill, so that's it for arrays. Click right here for the drills assignment. Here I'm going to give you a fun exercise to practice arrays, and then we'll go through my solution together. Have fun, keep pushing, see you in my next episode. Peace.